Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I hope we're all doing well this evening. So as part of the relationship that I've been developing with Vera, she's presented some really great ideas in terms of how we can combine more natural materials into the construction sector. Now, Vera of Mars City Designs holds a Masters of Science professorship for systems engineering, and she is a visionary architect, and her Mars architecture simulation is currently being built in the California desert. That's something that I think we should explore later. And her journey has been published on the Discovery Channel, CNN, and ABC so far, which are pretty accomplished platforms. I'm very excited to work with her, as you can imagine. Next slide, Vera. So some of the things that we're going to cover today will be to look at some of the environmental problems that we would like to solve, and also how we can reduce, for example, flooding in suburbs and built up areas, and also some of the common issues that are happening with regards to fire in more old buildings, aging buildings, that construction materials have become more degraded and are therefore subject to fire. And we are looking as part of the project to improve land which is currently contaminated, maybe not fit for construction purposes. And that as part of that, we are going to create a local supply chain which will help to improve jobs, etc., in the local areas. And as we all know, cost of materials have been increasing substantially for imports particularly, and that's something else we want to address, is that we want to have more of a local model. Some of those issues that have been created by COVID-19 in particular during this time. Next slide. Over to you, Vera.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the introduction. And I just realized that everything we're doing for the Mars environment, which just means the really, really extreme version of Earth, could be applied today. We don't have to wait for Alexandra and myself to be able to go to Mars to start building with this material. And I think the real interesting issue to solve is the supply chain itself. So we have these environmental benefits and ease of scalability by mycelium and hemp, as most of you probably know, because it seems like this is the group where all these experts are. So I congratulate you for that, and thank you for including me. But yeah, with this, I think we have experimented a few things before we jump into producing that material. We explore the different areas on how to keep the supply chain all locally. So we, with Mars City Designs collaborator, who actually has a lab in Tokyo, they cultivated some types of bacteria that benefit the health of humans for longevity, to solve the health issues that astronauts would have to face when they live in space for too long. That is applied to animals and chickens and animals in the farm, and then also applied to these plants. And they experimented it at the Jardin de Versailles. So it resulted that not only the fruits are abundant compared to different seasons previous years, but the soil, it's also because the soil has some remedy. It becomes more compatible to create more diversity of plants. So that's what we're missing these days. We want to learn more about perennial farming results from this fertilizer that is based on bacteria cultivation. And just some examples that I have done with a team back in France when I was still working for Rudy Ricciotti Architects. We were recycling cities that used to be coal mining areas, and it has been like a hole in the entire urban design. So with the greenification of the area, we were able to make this place a lot more connectable, a lot more active. And I give Alexandra this.
Thank you. So we have been looking at potential sites in order to launch this project, and one potential launch site includes the Vale of Glamorgan in South Wales, and it's there's a reason why, and it's because this area is it's fruitful in terms of its biodynamics, and there's a lot of heritage in this area that needs to also be preserved. And in this particular area, there is talk of them hosting a new radioactive power station. All the more reason potentially to have this as a launch site and make sure that there is as little impact on the local environment as possible. And we could use it as a test site to show viability for the project that we're doing. Next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, just an example of what we could do if we have the interior solutions while waiting for the exterior land remedy program that is possibly at the end of some period of time, we will be able to combine the indoor farming and the outdoor farming. Just some examples of how the commercial market view these materials these days. I think it's important to also integrate, the overall holistic visions of how this material could generate the global impact. So without architects being involved, the difficulties is that we will come back to the same type of not sustainable outcome, meaning if we only produce bricks out of mycelium or algae plastics, then without having the design involved, then it will be just another material choices. So I found it really interesting to have some kind of program to show the examples of the design. That's what we have been doing. We were very inspired by the natural landscape of Mars that is very unique. It's called the Martian Barchan Dunes. And what's interesting is that these dunes are moving. They form for a while, and at certain point they can move with their volumes and weight. And what we captured from this geometry is that we intentionally would like to introduce some kind of structure made of mycelium that would be able to accumulate the sand on top of it by, using the natural wind to deposit some soil on it, so that over the time we can solve the issues of radiation. So the one very potent radiation protection would be the amount of soil on top of the structure. but it's too heavy to bring everything to Mars. So what we learn is that this is the same issues as supply chain in the world, is that there's so many polluting aspects of every commodities, every movement, that if we have it all in place locally, and the magic of the mycelium, the mushroom, is that from this one certain volume, you can actually grow a castle, let's just say that. And this was in our lab near Philadelphia, where the model is grown a meter long, and we just wanted to test the resistance, and we put the chicken on it, and then a cat and the dog, and then the kids and Chris, the architect collaborator, 100 kilo, and it's still standing intact. So it's quite good geometry combination with the material. And oh, sorry. So this was near you guys in London, where the Design Museum exhibition happened during the 2 years. It was called Moving to Mars. And now it's shown in Warsaw. Then this is one of the mycelium in form of bricks. So as I mentioned, yeah, we can sell the bricks, but people may not know how to do it, and they would rather pick the regular bricks just because it's easier. And the benefit of adapting our material to the existing technology today, like 3D printing, is that it will move toward the future together with the goal of sustainability. So it's not just going back to the previous time. How we build will be different. How we use the material will be even better if we support each other. You know, this is where we're at. And if we could print this with hempcrete, why not? It would be even better. This is in Switzerland, in Zurich, ETH. And finally, of course, Brazil has their interest in having algae farm that will create biofuel. Alex, you want to take this? Oh, muted. We can't hear you, Alex.
Sorry about that. Yes, I gave the first point to you. Do you want to cover this one?
Right. So overall, I think the importance here is that if we could somehow not just thinking about the production of the material, but having the overall program, so that locally you can operate in a circular economy, then, you know, the environmental benefits and the scalability of these materials can be a lot more efficiently demonstrated toward the commercial market.
Mm. And also, as I mentioned before, the COVID-19 implications, what that meant for imports and exports is that they became suddenly much more difficult. And we have a definite need now to create a localized supply chain of materials that can be used in everyday constructs, such as everything from clothing right through to construction materials. And as part of it, it's really important to look at how we can upscale land that wouldn't have otherwise been useful, and regenerate it and turn it into a green space, and have the option to utilize that space. And I think that's what a lot of landowners perhaps would be looking for. So there's a definite implication that this could improve options for private companies, but also public entities such as councils who have land that is no longer useful to them and they have no idea what to do with it. So yeah, I'll leave the last point to you, Vera.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, of course, we can see that all these productions at the end of the day for us and the way we practice our environment, the way we live in it. If we eat a better chicken, healthier chicken, then we are healthier. And if we have better outcomes for the plants, then we may live longer. I mean, that's just the circular economy, but also that is applied in our wellness. And with that, I just wanted to point out, when we get back to this map of the global goals that we talked about recently, we can see that 15 out of 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals are starting from the local effort, local actions. So, and also, like, you know, I think what is exciting to me is that there are so many forums like this, which is great, but there is not enough collaboration to be coming out as an action. So it's really hard to scale that action. But if we just start with the local areas, local opportunities, and this is why what Alexandra is doing to introduce me to you guys is so important, just because if we can start small in your own area, then we can give impact to this all global benefits.
So as part of the project, we could see that there was a definite gap in terms of making the resulting product useful, and that it would be utilized and uptaken by commercial outfits. So as part of it, we really need to offer training to professionals, and we do have some good connections there, but that it's always useful for us to have additional connections. So if anyone does know in terms of training providers who we could work with, that would be really useful for us. And in terms of finding distributors as well who would be looking to sell this product, who would find it most useful, if you have ideas of companies that would definitely take this on, then we'd love to discuss that with you in any way that we can provide information to make that relationship as fluid as possible.
Sorry, just to intercept, the example was recently, I don't know if any of you have seen the Hermes bag started to use mycelium leather. So I found that very encouraging, just to right away see the luxury products. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
No, it's fine. And I think through this conversation, already hearing what we've had from the last presentation, there is opportunity to work with research partners as part of this project. So we're reaching out to companies who have done research within this area, who would like to see their material utilized as part of these projects. Is very beneficial to the whole cause. It means that things will happen, and that their knowledge is also being used in the projects that they've worked on for so long is also going to be utilized, because we all know how useful this product is. So let's make sure that we can make the biggest impact we can by collaborating. Next slide, Vera.
Yeah, so about projecting the timeline, I'm sure most of you also understand this scaling in terms of the collaboration. We are thinking about 2 to 5 years, depending on, you know, how the material is grown, and back to supply chain. Basically, how do we organize ourselves to be most local possible to satisfy the entire commercialization of it. And yeah, 25 years for local economic sustainable development, for sure, once we have all of that system working. And the payoff is an infinite environmental impact.